Hello again, and welcome to this podcast from Duncan Cartledge Online, the last one for 2023. So, may I take this opportunity to wish you a peaceful festive season and a happy and prosperous new year, and thank you for your support during the past 12 months. Once again, Barney, my fox red Labrador, is here, and he sends his season's greetings too. In this episode, we'll have a look at apprenticeships, overtaking part-time degrees, skills shortages, making construction sexy, and the headlines for 2024. So let's start by having a look at apprenticeships. Part-time training has come a long way in the past few years. I clearly remember taking a part-time evenings-only class at Thames Polytechnic, now the University of Greenwich, in the day before degrees were commonplace. At the time, there was no coursework element, as assessment was by examination only. The students were timetabled for 4 evenings a week. They had Friday off, from 6:30 p.m. to 9 p.m, in preparation to sit the external examinations of the RICS, the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. The RICS exams had a fearsome reputation, comprising several unseen papers set by a committee of RICS members in grey suits. The exams were sat only once a year, in a 3 or 4 day period, with exams in both morning and afternoon, in various regional centres across the UK. Believe it or not, it wasn't unknown for trick questions to be set in an attempt to restrict the pass rate to 35%. In my class at Thames, some students were on their 4th or 5th attempt. I remember one student in particular, on his 4th attempt, who had been promised a partnership in his father's practice when he became a chartered surveyor. I wonder if he ever made it. There was no directed revision. I'm sure you know what I mean by that, as nobody knew the questions until you turned over the paper on the day of the exam. You literally had to revise everything. There were no mechanisms for appealing on the grounds of feeling unwell, family bereavement, etc. And as for dyslexia, well, just man up. If you were unwell on the day, tough. Come back next year, after having paid another fee. There were positively no resits. I think that current students would have great difficulty in coping with such a draconian approach, as the contrast between today's university courses, many of which have a high percentage of coursework or continuous assessment, and the approach I've just described are a million miles away. I do, however, know some people hark back to the good old days, to what was, in effect, restrictive practice. There was a time when construction professionals regarded apprenticeships only for people on the tools, and certainly not for them. There is no doubt the part-time study produces the oven-ready quantity surveyors and construction managers demanded by industry, whereas full-time students are, in a lot of respects, lacking hands-on and interpersonal skills when they enter the job market for the first time. Even so, a major problem with traditional part-time courses has been that they engender a them-and-us situation. That's to say, the university and the employer, between whom there have always been tensions, with employers demanding courses with greater practical elements and universities who try to appease the professional bodies by including more academic topics. Apprenticeships differ from traditional part-time courses as the employer is very much part of the training team and closely involved in the learning process. Only a few years since the introduction of graduate apprenticeships, the number of students enrolling in them is now expected to exceed students on traditional part-time programs, and most professional bodies have enthusiastically embraced this approach. And now a look at skills shortages. A report earlier this year from the Construction Skills Network forecast that up to 225,000 extra construction workers would be needed by 2027. The skill shortage in construction at all levels has long been a limiting factor across the sector. Brexit exacerbated the situation, and then the Home Secretary comes along and announces a new plan to cut migration levels in the UK, which includes increasing the earning threshold by almost 50%. From next spring, the government will increase starting salaries for overseas workers from its current level of just over £26,000 to nearly £39,000, in a measure intended to reduce annual net migration by 300,000. As part of the plan, the government will replace the shortage occupation list with a new immigration salary list. The current list includes skilled workers such as bricklayers and, you may be surprised to learn, quantity surveyors. The number of vacancies in construction trades has reached 140,000, with builders, electricians and plumbers in highest demand. An ageing workforce heading into retirement and a low number of young people opting for a career in construction have all had a damaging impact on the UK infrastructure delivery and affordable housing programmes. Other data from the Office for National Statistics reveals that 1 in 4 EU-born construction workers had left the industry between September 2019 and September 2020 and did not return during 2021-22. With the over 50s taking early retirement or otherwise choosing to become economically inactive for personal or for health reasons, exacerbating the situation further. To try to combat this trend, the government has recently launched a programme to help the over 50s return to work. So the question is, how do we make construction more sexy? The construction industry is at an inflection point. Digital technologies are disrupting the industry, providing new opportunities to address the challenges of poor profitability, productivity, poor performance, skilled labour shortages, as well as sustainability concerns. The sector, along with others, is experiencing what has been called the fourth industrial revolution that will fundamentally alter the way we work, that of digitisation, as companies grapple with the current challenges and rethink how they can use digital technology to meet new standards. The construction sector is unique insofar that a high proportion of tasks are still carried out manually. Prioritising digital skills is seen as one way to address talent challenges. The construction industry will have an increasing need for specialists with digital skills in fields such as virtual and augmented reality, artificial intelligence and digital twins. In addition to recruiting new skills into the industry, there is also a need to continuing upskill existing employers so that they can help firms successfully embrace the opportunities on offer. Firms that don't prioritise digital skills in their recruitment process will struggle to keep up with their digital initiatives for their business in the future. Furthermore, investing in new technologies in conjunction with upskilling and recruitment efforts could give firms a competitive edge and protect their balance sheets in the long term. A fifth of construction professionals believe construction talent shortages over the next 5 to 10 years will be caused mainly by a shortage of digital and technology skills. But we all know the problem. It will only be the top few percent of Tier 1 contractors who will embrace the new technologies. For the majority, digitisation will be something to read about in construction news. In addition to new skills, the industry also needs greater emphasis on trying to make construction a more attractive, family-friendly workplace, and that applies both to men and women. Currently, only 2% of site workers are female, prompting the phrase stale, male and pale. So things like family leave, maternity leave, parental leave are all things that employers are having to look at very closely and perhaps make them more generous and thereby appealing to school leavers. Culture on site has always been seen as a macho, male-orientated one, But I think with the greater emphasis of digital technology, companies need to move away from the old stereotype, and it seems as if some businesses are recognizing this. It includes putting in place training programs to polish off the edges in workplaces and make them a little bit more user-friendly for people from more diverse backgrounds. As discussed in the last podcast, because of the impact of the pandemic and remote working, return to work has and continues to be a big issue, and I think we're seeing a lot of businesses adapting to how they approach this. If we'd had the pandemic, say 10 or 15 years earlier, after it had passed and the all clear had been sounded, the call would have been, right lads, everybody back in the office or back on the site, full time, no quibbling, no exceptions. Today, the approach seems to be more along the lines of, just a minute, we need to make the working environment more attractive. We need to have more flexible working. So we're seeing a lot of industry moving to something like a 60 or 70% requirement to be on site or be in the office. But this does, of course, depend on individual circumstances. But much more flexibility is an encouraging thing and could help achieve a more diverse workforce. So, let's have a look in the crystal ball and see what's in store for next year. The three headliners that I have identified are new government, modern methods of construction, and sustainability. Things are tough in construction just now, with 15-year high interest rates, new construction orders down, and insolvencies up. And all the signs are that any improvement in the new year will only be slow and marginal. Almost certainly 2024 will see a general election and a Labour government. Now, historically, a Labour government has been good news for construction, with increased investment in public sector and infrastructure projects. At the Labour Party conference in October, Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves unveiled a series of reforms that would see a Labour government, and I quote her here, get Britain building again. The plans would, and again I quote, accelerate the building of critical infrastructure for energy, transport and technology. The promised Labour Party reforms appear to concentrate on speeding up the planning for critically important infrastructure and fast-tracking the planning process. Where have we heard that before? For priority growth areas of the economy, such as battery factories, laboratories and 5G infrastructure, as well as a promise to tackle time-consuming red tape. Modern methods of construction. One of the main planks in the present government's construction playbook is the increased use of standardised components and modern methods of construction, which includes off-site fabrication and modular construction. The public fell out of love with system-built or modular construction after the Ronan Point tower block collapse in the late 1960s, but investment in modular construction is increasing as it is seen to be greener and faster than traditional approaches, as construction transitions from an industry focused on building to one focused on assembly, just as the motor car industry did in the 1990s. Modular construction and modern methods of construction generally help to ease the skill shortages referred to earlier. In the new £500 million stadium for Everton Football Club, modern methods of construction is set to have been used in 70% of the 52,000 capacity stadium. The concrete floors and the brick facades are manufactured 120 miles away from Liverpool from 3D digital models and transported to site by road. It is a truly impressive project with lots of related YouTube videos. I would encourage you to have a look, even if you support Liverpool. And the final topic in a look as to what's coming next year is sustainability. So let's turn to green issues. Given the buildings are responsible for 37% of energy-related carbon emissions and 34% of final energy use, as well as a large share of extracted materials, it is no surprise that they are the forefront of the recent COP28. What is particularly alarming is that in a recent survey published by the World Benchmarking Alliance, 44% of companies across the building and construction related sectors did not currently have a target to curb emissions. Even among companies with awareness of the issue, 54% admitted not to have a climate transition plan. Although it sounds like a complicated process, with the right information it is possible to make realistic estimates of embodied carbon for an entire structure at the earliest stages in the design processes, with the substructure, superstructure and external envelope being the three elements responsible for most of the project's embodied carbon, and some QS firms, for example Turner & Townsend, are currently doing this. Calculating a project's embodied carbon as the design develops is becoming easier for non-specialists. There is an increasing number of software-based tools, for example, the free FCBS Carbon. This tool gives the design team an insight into the whole life carbon impact of a building from the outset of the project. The International Cost Measurement Standards, or ICMS, is also worth a look on this topic and is available as a free download. So, as 2023 draws to a close, it only remains for me and Barney to wish you health and happiness and prosperity for 2024. See you next year.